Known for his intense roles and stoic demeanor, Charles Bronson became a symbol of violence and arrogance on screen. He died 20 years ago, but his daughter has recently revealed some unknown facts about his father. From his early struggles to the misunderstood aspects of his life and character, Bronson's story is far more complex than we ever imagined. Keep watching this video as we uncover the story of the real Charles Bronson. A rough beginning. To truly grasp who Bronson was, we must rewind to his beginnings. Born Charles Bunchinsky on November 3, 1921 in Ehrenfeld, Pennsylvania, a bleak coal mining town, he was one of 15 children in a Lithuanian immigrant family. Poverty cast a long shadow over Bronson's childhood. He wore his sister's dresses to school, shaved his head to ward off lice, and felt compelled to start earning a living far too young. The harshness of life pushed him to take up smoking at just 9 years old. After his father passed away from lung disease when Bronson was only 10, survival became even harder. By 16, he was hauling coal in the mines for a meager $1 per ton. Those 6 grueling years left him with painful memories of back-breaking labor, scars, and the dreaded smell of coal that he claimed never left him. The cramped tunnels etched lasting trauma in him, leaving him with chronic headaches, claustrophobia, and what he called his unsightly hands. In his 2001 biography, Menacing Face Worth Millions, A Life of Charles Bronson, Brian D'Ambrosio noted how Bronson, after finding fame, spun tall tales about his past to keep journalists guessing. He painted himself as a hard-luck kid with dramatic claims, that he couldn't speak English in high school, that his mother had once sold him to travelers, and that he was forced to wear his sister's clothes. However, according to his first wife, Harriet Tendler, the story about the dresses was pure fiction. His brothers loved to tease him about those wild tales he'd made up, she said. But amid the myths, one truth stands out. Being drafted into the Army in 1943 marked a turning point in Bronson's life. Military service and the path to Hollywood. The kid who once joked about waiting on street corners with a milk bottle ready to rob someone found a renewed sense of purpose in the military during World War II. Assigned as a gunner and driver, rumors swirled that he served as a tail gunner, flying 26 combat missions in the Pacific. Although he rarely spoke of his wartime experiences, Harriet recalled his deep sense of pride in his service. Still, Bronson's Army stint wasn't without incident. In Bronson's Loose Again, on the set with Charles Bronson, author Paul Talbot shared a story of a conflict in Kingman, Arizona, where Bronson clashed with a sergeant during gunnery training. I picked him up and threw him. For some reason, I thought as long as I didn't hit him, I wouldn't get into trouble. But when he landed, he broke his arm, Bronson admitted. His punishment was 6 months of hard labor, lugging sides of beef and hauling out garbage, a humbling experience for the man who would later command the screen. Following his honorable discharge in 1946, Bronson's path to stardom began with humble jobs: a baker in Philadelphia, a bingo caller on the Atlantic City Pier, while he slowly nurtured his true passion for the arts. A twist of fate came when he encountered a group of actors who spotted his skill as a painter and invited him to help with set design. But before long, Bronson found the thrill of performing irresistible. Encouraged by his new friends, he gave acting a try, and by 1949 he was off to California, taking acting classes and meeting his first wife, aspiring actress Harriet Tendler. They married that same year, with 27-year-old Bronson beginning his journey alongside 18-year-old Tendler. His on-screen debut came in the 1951 film You're in the Navy Now, which he humorously claimed he landed simply for his unique ability to burp on cue. However, his rugged looks and unrefined style were far from the Hollywood ideal of the time, making his rise to stardom an uphill battle. From Charles Bunchinsky to Charles Bronson. Initially, Bronson used his birth name, Charles Bunchinsky, but it soon posed a risk during the communist witch hunts of the McCarthy era. Fearing his Lithuanian name might attract unwanted attention, he decided to change it. While driving with fellow actor Steve McQueen, they spotted a sign reading Bronson Street, and McQueen, with a spark of inspiration, shouted that it was the perfect name for his friend. Bronson took McQueen's advice, adopting the name that would soon become synonymous with the rough, tough anti-hero. Ironically, Bronson's father, Valteris Bukinski, had once changed his name to Walter to sound more American. A friendship before fame. Before they were stars, Bronson and Jack Klugman shared an apartment in New York City during the late 1940s, each hustling to carve a path in the acting world. Their friendship blossomed during those lean years, and even after they went their separate ways, the bond remained strong. Klugman later reminisced about their shared quirks, particularly Bronson's unexpected knack for ironing. "He was a damn good ironer," Klugman jokes, a talent that contrasted sharply with the gritty, no-nonsense characters Bronson would become known for. Their shared past painted Bronson in a more relatable light, reminding those who knew him that even a future Hollywood tough guy had a touch of domestic flair. Self-made language learner. Bronson's journey with language was rooted in his Lithuanian heritage. At home, Lithuanian was the norm, with English taking a back seat until he entered school. Growing up in a multilingual community, he leaned heavily on Lithuanian with friends, only learning English out of necessity as he ventured into acting and later joined the Air Force. Self-taught in English, Bronson developed a distinctive accent that often led his fellow servicemen to think he was a foreigner, a misconception that added to his unique challenges. Remarkably, he went on to master not just English but also Russian and Greek, a testament to his adaptability and linguistic skill. Rise to stardom. In 1958, his role in Machine Gun Kelly put Bronson on the map, particularly drawing the admiration of French actor Alain Delon, who invited him to Europe. Bronson's European debut came in the 1968 film Adieu l'ami, Farewell Friend. At first unsure, Bronson accepted the role after learning that European cinema valued character and depth over appearance, a refreshing shift from Hollywood's focus. Adieu l'ami became a blockbuster hit in France, turning Bronson into a beloved star across Europe. In the United States, he was still carving his niche, but that changed as he took on roles like Lieutenant Danny Tunnel King in The Great Escape. This part hit close to home, mirroring Bronson's own claustrophobia, a fear rooted in his days as a coal miner. In a memorable scene, he taps into this phobia, adding a layer of authenticity as his character panics in the escape tunnel. "Even now, when I'm in the back of a car, I get those feelings," he admitted in a 1970s interview. The weight of his past. Bronson's intense, stoic on-screen presence was shaped by the hardships of his early life. Film critic Roger Ebert once noted that Bronson's real-life personality mirrored his characters, uncommunicative and private, preferring solitude over socializing. Many critics suggested that Bronson's reticence stemmed from feeling overlooked by Hollywood, which took longer to appreciate his talent than European audiences did. This sense of being undervalued fed into his reserved, mysterious persona, giving him an enigmatic air that kept fans intrigued but distant from his guarded emotional world. On-screen violence and real-life clashes. As his career progressed, Bronson became known for his roles in violent films, and his off-screen reputation mirrored this intensity. His stoic face and silent demeanor often led people to perceive him as someone who had experienced real violence, which wasn't entirely untrue. There were reports of Bronson getting into physical altercations on set, including a famous incident where he left a director gasping for air after an argument. His fiery temper wasn't limited to altercations. He was notoriously difficult with directors who he felt didn't understand his vision, and he often scoffed at the Hollywood nonsense he encountered. In a 1971 interview with Paris Cine Review, he didn't hold back, saying, "Most producers and directors are ID. Everyone in the film thinks only of money." Directors who worked with him had their share of tales about their volatile relationship with Bronson. Don Siegel, in his autobiography A Siegel Film, recounted that while filming Telephone, actress Lee Remick was so intimidated by Bronson that she hesitated to touch his face in a scene. When Siegel asked her why, she nervously replied, "I don't dare. He'll bite me." Bronson also had a problematic relationship with the press. He reportedly expressed discomfort with in-depth interviews. When journalist Stephen Whitney wrote, "Charles Bronson Superstar, the real man behind the rock-hard macho image." In 1975, Bronson was outraged by the content, especially its comments on his wife, Jill. According to accounts, Bronson allegedly tried to halt its release and may have attempted to buy copies of the book. Film critics weren't spared his scorn either. He once remarked, "We don't make movies for critics since they don't pay to see them anyhow." Roger Ebert, after a 1974 interview, commented on Bronson's capacity for violence, noting the fierce intensity in his eyes. Discussing critic Jay Cox's harsh review of The Stone Killer, Bronson ominously said, "One way or another, sooner or later I'll get that man. Not physically, but I'll get him." He also had little patience for younger Hollywood actors, once calling them full of bull. In a 1977 interview with The Washington Post, he expressed his conviction that his real-life experiences gave him an edge over the method guys of the industry. "I can play the character better because of my experience, because of the things I've been through," he said. He also singled out actors like De Niro, Stallone, and Pacino, suggesting they all seemed like variations of each other. Dismissing the idea of awards, Bronson brushed off the Academy as a lot of bunk. Notably, his only major nomination was an Emmy nod in 1961 for his role as Soldier Conlon in Memory in White, a television episode starring Ronald Reagan. Working with Walter. Despite these clashes, Bronson was deeply respected by those who knew him well. His 1975 role in Hard Times, Walter Hill's directorial debut, saw Bronson as a bare-knuckle fighter, a character that required both grit and physical stamina. Hill, who directed Bronson's wife in Hard Times and later helmed Southern Comfort and 48 HRs, recalled Bronson's impressive physicality. "He was in remarkable shape for a man his age, about 52 then," Hill shared in the Hollywood interview. "His coordination was exceptional, and he had a fantastic build. The only drawback? Bronson's smoking habit impacted his endurance." Hill noted, "He could probably take anyone on set, but he wouldn't last more than 30 or 40 seconds. Their professional relationship took a hit over Hill's decision to trim scenes featuring Bronson's wife, a choice that Bronson found overly strict. After this, Hill noticed Bronson's shifting warmth toward him. "Once at a party, he walked right past me without a word. But then, a year later, he treated me like an old friend," Hill recalled, underscoring Bronson's unpredictable nature. The battle over his character's mortality. Bronson, known for embodying indomitable characters, had no tolerance for seeing his on-screen persona killed off. When handed a script that doomed his character, he wasted no time in confronting the director. In 1991, Richard Crystal sent Bronson the script for City Slickers, hoping he would take on the role of Curly, the tough, seasoned cowboy. Within a day, Bronson called him back, livid. "He cursed me out," Crystal recounted in 2021. Bronson exclaimed, "I'm dead on page 53. How could you do this to me? Charles Bronson doesn't die." This defiant stance, rooted in his reputation as the unbreakable hero of Death Wish and other films, was part of the tough guy legacy he carefully cultivated. Crystal tried to explain that Curly's death was pivotal, inspiring the other characters to take charge of the cattle drive, but Bronson would hear none of it. The story gained a humorous twist later, during the Cannes Film Festival when Jack Palance was honored for his performance as Curly, a role that earned him an Oscar nod. Crystal saw Bronson at the after-party sitting with Sean Penn. "I gave him a nod, he stood up and left," Crystal remembered, capturing Bronson's enduring resistance to compromise. Director Sean Penn, who worked with Bronson in The Indian Runner, experienced a similar clash. When Penn's script required Bronson's character to die by suicide, Bronson voiced his concern, particularly about how his Italian fan base would react. "Are you sure we need that scene?" he asked, hinting at his reluctance. Though Penn and Bronson shared a good rapport, the veteran actor's steadfast resistance to shedding his iconic mustache became another sticking point. When Penn joked about it, Bronson gave him a hard look and warned, "You better not be kidding." The defining role. Death Wish. At age 52, Bronson accepted the role of Paul Kersey in Death Wish, 1974, a career-defining moment that cemented him as the embodiment of vigilante justice. In the film, Kersey, a mild-mannered New York architect, transforms into a vigilante after a brutal attack on his family. This gritty portrayal of a man seeking justice in a lawless world resonated deeply with audiences. Yet the film was not without controversy. Director Michael Winner recognized Bronson's intense presence as perfect for the complex role of Kersey, a peaceful man pushed to confront crime head-on. Young actor Jeff Goldblum, making one of his first film appearances, played a gang member in Kersey's haunting revenge tale. However, Death Wish wasn't initially conceived with Bronson in mind. When Winner began casting, He offered the role to Hollywood heavyweights like Clint Eastwood, Frank Sinatra, and even Henry Fonda, who rejected the role as distasteful. But Bronson, ever true to his formidable persona, seized the chance. "I'd like to do it," he told Winner. When the director clarified if he meant the movie, Bronson answered in his typical, intense style, "No, I'd like to shoot muggers." Bronson's take on Death Wish message. The bold portrayal of vigilante justice in Death Wish sparked intense debate. Some even warned Bronson of its dangerous potential, including his agent, Paul Kohner. However, Bronson argued, saying, "An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind," viewing the story as a cautionary tale rather than an endorsement of violence. Released on July 24, 1974, the film, made with a $3.7 million budget, became a blockbuster, raking in over $22 million. In a single week at one New York theater, it made $70,000, breaking the record of The Godfather at the same venue. The novel versus the film? Originally based on Brian Garfield's 1972 novel, Death Wish had a distinctly different tone in the book than the one presented on screen. Garfield had envisioned a nuanced exploration of the consequences of revenge and was disappointed with the film's direction. Imagining Jack Lemmon in the lead and Sidney Lumet at the helm, Garfield had crafted a complex tale that diverged from Michael Winner's gritty, action-heavy approach. Reportedly, Winner responded to Garfield's criticism by downplaying the popularity of Garfield's novel, allegedly remarking that it had barely sold 3 copies, and challenged Garfield's vision by asking, "Did you think you were writing a fairy tale?" Death Wish's enduring impact and controversy. The unexpected success of Death Wish sparked 4 sequels, with Bronson reprising his role in films released in 1974, 1982, 1985, 1987, and 1994. However, Garfield remained vocal, dismissing the sequels as shallow and lacking the depth of the novel. The Death Wish series continued to stir cultural conversations, especially in 1984, when the real-life subway vigilante, Bernhard Goetz, shot 4 men on a New York City subway. When asked about Goetz, Michael Winner sarcastically commented, "If he's going to shoot someone on the subway, why not during our opening?" His remark fueled ongoing debate around vigilante justice and the film's influence. The cultural legacy of Death Wish even found its way into politics. In 2015, former President Donald Trump referenced the film at a rally, mentioning his handgun permit and hinting he would defend himself if attacked. The crowd cheered, chanting "Bronson" in response. Trump reportedly commented that a film like Death Wish might not be made today due to what he described as politically incorrect themes, underscoring how Death Wish had embedded itself as a provocative symbol in the discourse on crime and justice. A legacy built on toughness. At the height of his fame, Charles Bronson reportedly earned close to £2 million per film during the peak of his career, an amount bolstered by his role in Death Wish. Yet Bronson often found himself grappling with the brutal, unyielding image he'd become known for. "It's like seeing myself in a carnival mirror, distorted and menacing," he reflected in 1977. His tough persona wasn't far from reality. Director Ingmar Bergman famously described him as a man whose face is etched in violence. Bronson's rough beginnings hinted at this tenacity. He once used a bottle to intimidate strangers as a young man, broke a sergeant's arm in a brawl as a soldier, and even choked a director during an argument about a scene. By the 1980s, Bronson's name had become synonymous with toughness itself, inspiring notorious British prisoner Michael Gordon Peterson to adopt the moniker Charles Bronson. Fans worldwide celebrated him as an icon of resilience, with Italian audiences endearingly calling him Il Bruto, or the Ugly One, and the French referring to him as one of their monstres sacrés of cinema. His movies often earned more overseas than they did in North America. In Japan, he was so revered that his name once appeared on a sign stretching an entire block. Bronson's global appeal solidified his place as the ultimate symbol of grit and uncompromising strength. Bronson's hidden fears. Charles Bronson, the embodiment of raw toughness on screen, was far from the invulnerable figure he portrayed in his films. In reality, he struggled with deep-rooted fears and anxieties. One of his most persistent phobias was an intense fear of germs, a condition that dominated much of his life. This germophobia led to a significant aversion to physical contact, particularly handshakes. While many celebrities would eagerly engage with fans, Bronson shied away, often appearing aloof. To those around him, it seemed like coldness, but his reluctance was a manifestation of his deep unease about germs, making seemingly ordinary interactions uncomfortable for him. Another of Bronson's hidden fears was fire. During the making of Death Wish in 1974, it became evident that Bronson harbored a significant fear of being trapped in a burning building. He reportedly refused to stay in any hotel room above the second floor, worried that a fire could block his escape. These anxieties, so different from the fearlessness his characters displayed, revealed the man behind the tough exterior, offering a glimpse into his vulnerabilities and showing that even the strongest figures can harbor hidden insecurities. Bronson's reserved nature. As his career progressed, Bronson continued to lean into roles that reflected his reserved, no-nonsense demeanor, even transitioning to television with Family of Cops. In interviews, it became clear that Bronson was uncomfortable with the limelight and preferred silence over self-reflection. When famed critic Roger Ebert interviewed him in 1974, he found Bronson to be a man who preferred solitude to conversation. "I don't ever talk about the philosophy of a picture," Bronson said bluntly. "I'm entertained more by my own thoughts than by the thoughts of others." Despite his enormous fame, Bronson had little interest in watching his own films. Instead, he sought fulfillment in creative outlets like painting and sculpting. He worked under the pseudonym Binsky to ensure that his art was valued for its merit, not for his fame. His paintings sold well in their own right, proving that his talent extended beyond the screen, adding another layer to his complex legacy. A heartfelt connection with Kurt Russell. One of the most unexpected and heartwarming moments in Charles Bronson's life revolved around his relationship with a young Kurt Russell. When Russell, then just starting his career, gave Bronson a remote-controlled airplane for his birthday, the tough actor initially seemed unresponsive. But in a surprising turn of events, Bronson later returned the gesture on Russell's birthday, giving him a high-quality skateboard. The real surprise came when a security guard tried to stop Russell from skating on the studio lot. Bronson, ever the protector, stepped in and declared, "We're both going to be skateboarding around the lot now." This simple yet powerful gesture revealed a side of Bronson that many didn't see. A man who, beneath his tough guy persona, was capable of genuine kindness and loyalty. Love and life beyond the spotlight. Charles Bronson's personal life was a tapestry of complex relationships, marked by both passion and heartache. His first significant romance was with actress Jill Ireland, whom he met while filming The Great Escape in the 1960s. At the time, Ireland was married to actor David McCallum, and though Bronson jokingly told McCallum that he would one day marry Ireland, the joke turned into reality when they wed in 1968, just a few years after Bronson's divorce from his first wife, Harriet Tendler. Ireland, once the lover of director Michael Winner, played a pivotal role in Bronson's life, both personally and professionally. Winner, who first met Bronson in 1970, became a close collaborator, directing him in several films, including Chatto's Land, The Mechanic, and The Stone Killer. He was the one who ultimately cast Bronson as the vengeful vigilante Paul Kersey in Death Wish, recognizing the actor's ability to channel the character's repressed fury. In Ireland, Bronson found a partner who truly understood his intense nature. Their relationship, which lasted until Ireland's death in 1990, was a cornerstone of his life. Together, they raised a blended family of 7 children in their luxurious Bel Air mansion, and Bronson frequently insisted on having Ireland as his on-screen love interest, leading to them appearing in 15 films together. Bronson was devoted to keeping his family close. Whenever possible, he brought them along to film sets, and the couple also owned Zuleika Farm in Vermont, named after their only daughter. Later, they spent time in Snowmass, Colorado, a peaceful retreat from the chaos of Hollywood. Personal loss and final years. Charles Bronson's life was defined by both profound love and deep personal loss. After the passing of his beloved wife Jill Ireland from cancer in 1990, Bronson's world was irrevocably changed. Ireland's memoirs were adapted into a film, Reason for Living, The Jill Ireland Story, which starred Jill Clayburgh as Ireland, and Lance Henriksen as Bronson. Although the film sought to honor Ireland's memory, Bronson found the portrayal unsettling. The casting of Henriksen in particular did not sit well with him. Entertainment Weekly noted that while Henriksen's appearance didn't resemble Bronson's, he did manage to capture some of the actor's signature tough guy inscrutability. Bronson, however, considered legal action, uneasy with the invasion of his private life. 8 years after Ireland's death, Bronson found love again with Kim Weeks, a younger actress who remained by his side through his final years. But as time passed, the actor's health began to deteriorate. Bronson faced numerous health struggles, including hip surgery and lung cancer, which ultimately led to his decision to retire from acting. He passed away in 2003 at the age of 81, and the final years of Bronson's life were marred by familial tension. His former wife, Harriet Tendler, publicly accused Kim Weeks of manipulating the situation during Bronson's final days, alleging that Weeks prevented his family from visiting him as he struggled with respiratory failure, metastatic lung cancer, and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. The public fallout must have been a painful blow for a man who cherished his privacy, having always prided himself on being secretive, very private, like a hermit. Wealth and family. Despite his rugged, no-nonsense public image, Charles Bronson was a shrewd businessman who carefully negotiated his contracts and made smart investments, leaving behind an estate worth approximately $75 million in today's terms. His earnings from more than 100 films allowed him to amass an impressive portfolio, which included a 33-room Bel Air mansion, a 260-acre farm in Vermont, and a luxury home in Malibu. However, as with many families of the wealthy, the distribution of his estate was not without its controversies and disputes over who would inherit what became inevitable. Beyond his financial legacy, Bronson left behind a family who would carry on his name, including his adopted daughter Katrina Holden Bronson, who carved out a successful career as a film director. One of the most cherished items among his possessions was a painting titled Scoop Town, a personal reminder of his humble beginnings. This painting, deeply meaningful to his family, was a symbol of the man who, despite his fame and fortune, never forgot his roots. A side of Bronson you didn't expect. While Charles Bronson is often remembered for his tough guy persona, his daughter has recently shared a more intimate and surprising side of the man behind the screen. Contrary to the hard-edged characters he portrayed, Bronson, she reveals, had a tenderness that was especially apparent when it came to his family. This softer, more reflective side of Bronson contrasts sharply with the stoic, no-nonsense figure the public came to know. It's a revelation that humanizes the actor, showing that beneath the rough exterior, he was a man who carried the weight of his past, shaped by hardship, sacrifice, and the raw fight for survival. Looking back at Bronson's life, it's clear that the resilience and determination that defined his on-screen roles were deeply rooted in his own reality. His story serves as a reminder that the most powerful legacies are often built from the most challenging experiences. What do you think? Does the real Charles Bronson surprise you? Or does it change how you view his iconic roles? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like and hit that subscribe button for more stories on legendary figures like Bronson.